You are not looking at a forest. You are looking at the planet's lungs having a nightmare. Right now, as you stare at this screen, trillions of gallons of water are being violently ripped from the soil beneath your feet, atomized by the souls of 1,000 different species, and hurled back into the sky to form the very mist that is now choking the life out of this jungle. We have been taught that the rainforest is a place of life. We are wrong. It is a place of war. A silent, explosive, 400-million-year-old war between the earth and the sky. And the mist you see rising from the ground is not just weather, it is a weapon. What you are watching is the most aggressive terraforming event on Earth happening in real time. And you, sitting in your climate-controlled room, are breathing the fallout from this battlefield with every single breath you take. If you want to understand why your weather apps are lying to you, why the seasons have become schizophrenic, and why the air itself feels heavier than it did 10 years ago, you cannot look up at the clouds. You have to look down. You have to look at the mud. You have to understand the transpiration death match happening inside the stomata of a single leaf. By the end of this video, you will never look at a houseplant the same way again. Before the jungle strangles me with a vine, hit that like button if you are ready to descend into the green hell. And subscribe if you want to breathe the mist with me. Do it now. The trees are waiting. We have to start by destroying the biggest lie you've ever been told, that a jungle is just a collection of trees. That is like saying the ocean is a collection of water molecules. Technically true, but cosmically stupid. A tropical jungle is a single hyper-object organism. It is a biological pump. It is a heat engine. And that mist you see, that is the exhaust. To understand why it's rising, we have to talk about the physics of desperation. Imagine you are a tree. You are a 200-foot-tall kapok tree. You are anchored in the earth, but your soul, your leaves, is in the sky. The sun hits you. It's not a gentle warmth, it's a potent assault. The sun is trying to cook you, trying to boil the water inside your cells until you burst into flame. You have two choices: die or sweat. You choose to sweat. This process is called transpiration. The tree, through millions of tiny mouths called stomata on the underside of its leaves, begins to suck water up from the roots. It pulls it up through the xylem, a vascular system that operates under negative pressure so intense that if you could cut a vine and attach a vacuum gauge, you'd realize the tree is pulling harder than any machine ever built by man. It pulls this water to the leaves, and then it releases it as pure, clean water vapor into the air. One single large tree in the Amazon can pump over 300 gallons of water into the atmosphere in a single day. Let that number sink in. 300 gallons. That's enough to fill 6 bathtubs. But it's not just one tree, it's 390 billion trees. Do the math on that for a second. You are looking at a continent-sized distillation system. This massive influx of water vapor doesn't just disappear. It cools the air around the canopy. It drops the temperature by several degrees. This cool, moist air is heavier than the hot, dry air above the canopy. It wants to sink? No. That's the paradox. It's cooler, but it's full of water. Water vapor is actually lighter than dry air. Dry air is mostly nitrogen and oxygen. When you add water vapor, H2O, you are replacing some of those heavy nitrogen molecules with lighter water molecules. So this humid air becomes buoyant. It rises. It rises in massive columns of invisible vapor. As it rises, it hits the cooler temperatures of the upper atmosphere, and it condenses. It forms clouds. It forms the mist. The jungle is breathing out, and that breath is visible. The ground is not producing the mist. The sky is receiving the jungle sweat and throwing it back down. This is the engine. But it's what this engine does next that turns this paradise into a sci-fi horror story. This rising air creates a low-pressure zone at the surface. And what does nature hate? A vacuum. Air from the ocean, specifically the Atlantic Ocean, laden with moisture, gets sucked in to fill the void. The trees are literally pulling the ocean air onto the continent. They are making their own weather. They are creating wind. They are creating the very conditions for rain. About half of the rainfall in the Amazon is actually recycled water. It rains. The tree sucks it up, the tree sweats it out, it forms a cloud, and it rains again. This water cycle can happen 5 or 6 times as a water molecule travels from the Atlantic across the continent to the Andes. The jungle is a water multiplier. It is a hydrological reactor. And that mist is the reactor coolant. It is the visible sign that the machine is running. But when that machine starts to break down, when we cut down the trees, we aren't just losing wood. We are turning off the pump. And when the pump turns off, the mist dies, the clouds disappear, and the continent turns to dust. This isn't a metaphor. It's fluid dynamics. And right now, as we look at the fires in the arc of deforestation, we are watching the pressure gauge of the planetary engine redline and start to squeal. We are watching the gaskets blow. But let's go deeper. Let's leave the physics of the canopy and sink down into the darkness where the roots are fighting. Because the mist isn't just coming from the leaves, it's being dragged out of the soil by the ghosts of the dead. You see that fog hugging the ground, the thick, soupy stuff that obscures the buttress roots. That isn't just condensation. That is the mycelial internet screaming. The soil of a tropical jungle is not dirt. Dirt is dead. This is soil. It is alive. In a single teaspoon of this soil, there are more microorganisms than there are people on Earth. There are miles of fungal hyphae weaving through the particles. This is the dark web. Trees trade sugar for phosphorus and nitrogen through these fungal networks. Mother trees send chemical signals to their saplings through these networks. It is a conscious, trading, backstabbing, cooperative metropolis underground. And this metropolis breathes, it respires. The roots of the plants, the bacteria breaking down organic matter, the fungi extending their tendrils, they are all consuming oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide. This isn't a small amount. The respiration from the soil in a tropical forest can account for up to 60% of the total ecosystem respiration. The ground is exhaling. But because the air above the soil is cool and moist from the canopy shade, and because the soil is packed with organic matter, acting like a sponge holding water, this CO2 and water vapor mix gets trapped. It forms a boundary layer. This is the mist you see at ankle and knee level. It is the breath of the decomposers. It is the ghost of the leaf that fell yesterday, being broken down into its constituent elements to feed the next generation. It is the smell of life eating death. Walk through this mist, and you are walking through a soup of information. You are breathing in fungal spores that have been waiting for this exact moment of humidity to launch their reproductive attack. You are inhaling bacteria that can fix nitrogen. You are tasting the terpenes released by a tree being eaten by a caterpillar miles away, a chemical distress signal that floats through the mist to attract a parasitic wasp that will come and kill the caterpillar. The mist is the medium, it is the courier, it carries the screams of the plants. There is a phenomenon known as bacterial aerosolization. When rain hits the ground, or when mist forms and dissipates, it creates tiny bubbles. When these bubbles pop, they don't just disappear. They shoot jets of water into the air so fast that they launch bacteria and fungi into the atmosphere. The ground is literally firing microbes into the sky. Some of these microbes, like Pseudomonas syringe, have a special protein that actually helps ice form. They are biological ice nucleating particles. They float up into the clouds and trigger rain, which brings them back down to the ground so they can do it all over again. The bacteria are controlling the weather to facilitate their own transport. The mist is a living entity. It is a vector. It is a highway system for the invisible. You are not just looking at water vapor. You are looking at a living, breathing, reproducing ecosystem that exists in the air. We have mapped the stars. We have mapped the oceans. We are only just beginning to map the air biome. and its headquarters is the jungle floor. Now focus your eyes, look past the mist, look at the specific architecture of the jungle itself, because the mist is not random. It is a slave to the geometry of the green. The jungle is designed to capture chaos. It is a fractal sponge. The canopy is not a solid roof. It is a series of overlapping umbrellas at different heights. This is called stratification. You have the emergent layer, the canopy, the understory, and the forest floor. Each layer modifies the air for the layer below. The mist forms in one layer and is trapped by the next. This multi-layered structure creates microclimates stacked on top of each other. The temperature and humidity at your ankle are drastically different from the temperature and humidity at your waist. This is why the biodiversity is so insane. You can have a species of frog that lives its entire life in a 2-foot vertical band of air, never going higher, never going lower, because that specific humidity level is the only one its skin can tolerate. The mist creates niches. It creates isolation. It drives evolution. The humidity inside a tropical jungle can remain near 100% for days on end, even when it's not raining. Why? Because the trees are sweating. Because the soil is breathing. Because the architecture of the leaves traps the vapor and refuses to let it escape. It recirculates it. It's a closed-loop system. This constant saturation leads to one of the most important, yet least talked about, aspects of the jungle: epiphytes, plants that live on other plants. Bromeliads, orchids, ferns, mosses, they cover every branch, every trunk. They are air plants. They don't need soil because the mist is their soil. They have adapted to suck moisture and nutrients directly from the fog. Their roots are often just anchors or specialized scales on their leaves that open to drink the clouds. A single tree can hold several tons of these epiphytes. They act like a giant wick. When the mist rolls through, they absorb it, they hold it, they drip it slowly down the trunk to the roots below. They are the reservoirs, they are the batteries of the water cycle. They smooth out the flow, preventing flash floods and releasing water slowly during dry periods. When you remove the large trees, you don't just remove the pump. You remove the scaffolding for the reservoir. The epiphytes crash to the ground and die. And without them, the mist has nothing to cling to. It just passes through. The microclimate collapses. The humidity drops. The leaf litter dries out and becomes tinder. The jungle becomes a desert waiting for a match. We are not just cutting down trees. We are dismantling a machine designed to manufacture rain and humidity. We are taking apart a Ferrari to sell the tires. And the mist is the oil leak. When the oil stops leaking, you know the engine has seized. This brings us to the most terrifying reality. The jungle is not just a victim of climate change, it is a major driver of it. And we are flipping the switch from cooling to incineration. The sheer scale of water moving through this system is hard to comprehend. The Amazon alone contains about half of the planet's remaining tropical rainforests. It holds 100 billion metric tons of carbon in its biomass and soil. But the atmospheric river it generates, the flying rivers, as scientists call them, carries as much water as the Amazon River itself. These invisible rivers of vapor flow westward, slamming into the Andes, turning into rain, feeding glaciers, and then flowing back east. This cycle of transpiration and condensation releases latent heat. When water evaporates, it absorbs heat. That's why sweating cools you down. When it condenses into mist and clouds, it releases that heat into the atmosphere. This latent heat releases a massive source of energy that drives global atmospheric circulation. The jungle is the boiler room of the planet's weather machine. It heats the air, it moves the air, it cleans the air, and it waters the continents. It is the beating heart of the South American landmass, and now we are giving it a heart attack. Deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon has pushed the region to a tipping point. Scientists estimate that if we clear more than 20 to 25% of the forest, the water cycle will collapse. The machine will lose too many parts. The transpiration will drop. The flying rivers will dry up. The dry season will lengthen. The fires will spread. The forest will no longer be able to generate its own rain. It will transition from a tropical rainforest to a tropical savanna. This is not a theory. We are seeing the early warning signs. We are seeing the mist disappear. We are seeing the humidity drop. We are seeing trees die, not from the saw, but from thirst in their own homeland. The tragedy is that the forest is resilient. It has survived ice ages and droughts, but it has never survived the removal of its own heart. The mist is the pulse. When you stop seeing that mist rising from the ground, you are not just looking at a clear day, you are looking at a flat line. You are looking at the death of a biome. And the death of this biome means the death of agriculture in southeastern South America, which relies on that moisture. It means the acceleration of global warming, as billions of tons of stored carbon are released from dying trees and drying soil. It means the extinction of 1 million species we haven't even named yet. Look at that line. On one side, life, breathing, sweating, fighting, creating worlds within worlds. On the other, death. Silence, heat. You are looking at the edge of existence. The choice is binary. We can continue to treat the jungle as an infinite resource, a warehouse of wood and land, to be exploited until the last tree falls and the last mist evaporates. Or we can recognize it for what it is. The only machine we have that can pull carbon out of the air, that can generate rain for our crops, that can house the genetic code for future medicines, and that can make the planet habitable for our children. This video is not a guilt trip. It's a status report. The planet is running a fever, and the jungle is the sweat gland. When the sweat glands shut down, the body dies. You have a voice. You have a wallet. You have a vote. The information is here. The science is settled. The mist is rising or it is dying based on the choices made in boardrooms and government chambers. Those chambers listen to pressure. They listen to money. They listen to us. If this video made you feel something, fear, awe, anger, wonder, then you have to act on it. Don't just watch and forget. That is the definition of insanity. Share this video. Send it to someone who thinks the environment is a political issue. Tell them it's a physics issue, it's a survival issue. Go to the links in the description. Look up the organizations that are buying land to preserve it, that are supporting indigenous communities who are the best guardians of the forest, that are fighting for policy change. Even if you can only plant a native tree in your backyard, do it. Every leaf is a pump. Every tree is a warrior. The mist needs an army. The forest needs us to see it not as a resource, but as a relative. We are made of the same water that rises from that ground. We breathe the same air that it sweats. We are the jungle, and the jungle is us. When it burns, we burn. When it breathes, we live. Don't let the mist fade to black. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Now, get up and do something before the silence takes over. I'll see you in the next one.